all of that requires significant amount of mental control, awareness. Basically, if you have stress in your life on land, you've got to master the art of leaving it right above water.
Off-Gassing, a scuba podcast with host Nick Hogel. Dive shops are some of my favorite places, an atmosphere of learning, a melting pot of characters, an opportunity to discover new friendships. While spending some time at Tek Deep Asia in Bali last year, I had the opportunity to meet Priyamvada Tiwari. Originally from India, she came to Amed for training. It was great to have her on the podcast to hear her story of how it all began and how it's going. From open water to instructor, recreational to technical, local diving around India, a mission to see more women in the industry, and much more. Please enjoy. Priyamvada, how are you doing this wonderful evening?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am good. And that's actually, it's evening, getting to the evening for me. What time is it over there for you?
It's 3:09.
Oh, okay. So a little afternoon, I guess, for you. So how's your day going? Anything fun today?
I was at work and then I got back a bit earlier to record this.
Okay,
Join
cool.
you. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. I'm excited to have you on, hear your story, and just catch up in general. It's been a while since I've seen you.
Likewise.
Awesome. My first question I usually like to ask is, well, actually, first let me ask this. I should say. So I'll throw this question out before my usual first question. Currently, where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Bangalore, India.
Okay. Well, as always, I am very excited to hear more about that area. But the first question I usually like to ask is, tell me how and why you became a scuba diver. Tell me about that first breath underwater. Was it absolutely amazing? Was it absolutely horrible? Was it, this is okay, I think I could do more?
Cool. So basically, it all started, you can say, about 10 years ago. So I graduated from college back in 2013 as an engineer, and I'd been working 2 years. And a friend and I, we were like a batchmate and I, we were both planning to also pursue higher studies, and we both got admits into the same university. And we were into sports back in college as well. We were in a basketball team and things like that. So we wanted to do something exciting. We both knew swimming, so she suggested, let's go to Goa. I was in Bangalore then, and so was she. And Bangalore, if you'd like to think about it, it's like, it's the Silicon Valley of India, and it's inland. It's not by any ocean. So you can either, and it's kind of central, so you can either choose to go west or east. The only thing about the west is that diving there is seasonal, but at that point it was on season. So we decided to go to Goa, which is actually a very touristic place, gets tourists from all over the world actually. And it has a lot of European settlers, etc., etc. It was a Portuguese colony back in the day. So diving is not what it's known for. It's known for partying. And I had never been to Goa before. So yeah, that was the first, and like, that was the first time we went. We knew that we're going to do the open water course because we'd done like a financial assessment of, doing the Discover Scuba Dive and, then again paying for the, we knew we can do it. We knew we'd like to go 18 meters. Sure, why not? And that's why we did it. And it was fun. It was, back then there was no e-learning, nothing. It was like 4-day course, right? Slow and steady. And of course, we did not see the other side of Goa because all the days that we were there, we were just diving in water. The first breaths underwater, they were in the pool of our instructor. Even though we were like just breathing in shallow water just below the surface, you still perceive, like, we all breathe as humans. And the work of breathing from a regulator, you can perceive that it's like a bit more. So That took like a few seconds to minutes to get used to. And also you can't like inhale from the nose, right? So that again, like it's just you just gotta be imagining sucking from a straw now. So that's what were the first breaths like, and the first dives, which happened like, so we had been in the pool 2 days. So our instructor was very nice. He would do theory and then he would dunk us in the pool first 2 days, and then third day is when we went to the ocean. I got seasick,
Oh,
and I thought this might be a deal breaker, but it didn't happen again ever. Like after that, only in like really bad situations, maybe once more in my lifetime have I been seasick. So I put that off to me using my phone too much on the boat. But yeah, taking too many photos and whatnot, excitement. So yeah, seasickness was there, but as we all know, once you're in the water, it's all good. And equalization is another thing. Like when you're doing pool swimming, and even if it's like a deep pool and you just go down, duck, touch the bottom, and come back up, unless you know better, you will ignore the pressure in your ears. But like scuba diving, you're going meters deep, several meters deep. Our first dive was 12 meters deep. You definitely have to equalize, and that doesn't come naturally to us humans because we're not built for that, right? So yeah, that took some learning that how frequently we need to equalize and just avoid pain. But yeah, once we got the hang of it, it was all good.
cool, cool. So I remember my going through training, like my open water. I mean, I feel like the further the date gets away, like some things I'll remember, some things I won't. But I remember going through the whole theory process because you hear about scuba diving. Well, I'd done a Discover scuba dive before that, so I'd had the experience of being underwater. But then when I actually got into the class, I was like, man, there's a lot of learning. There's a lot of stuff I actually have to learn, theory and this and that. And it's just open water. Obviously, there's not much compared to, once you start continuing your education. But how did you find the theory? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate
So
it? How was it?
I think I will be infamous forever for saying this, but it's the theory of driving which actually attracted me more, even more towards
Oh,
diving because I love physics. So, and there you get to apply physics every day, subconsciously,
yeah.
consciously, yeah. So
Okay, okay. Cool. So your friend that you got certified with is she still a diver?
she's still a diver, but I don't think she moved past the open water course, and she's now settled in the States with a daughter. So I
Oh.
don't think that ship is sailing anytime soon.
Um, so you took it, you liked it. At that point, was it like, okay, I want to learn more, or was it I'm just gonna fun dive for a bit? How was the progression from your open water?
Cool. So one thing you gotta understand is back here in India and maybe in several South East Asian countries, and maybe it's also partly promoted by dive agencies, but they try to upsell. So you're done with open water. Maybe you were not as good as a good diver should be, but you are immediately asked to think about the next steps. Unless you were abysmally bad and couldn't do stuff, you were asked to do that.
Yeah.
That's a mentality here. It's not great, and we as like slowly the instructor community here we are working towards promoting quality over quantity of certifications. But back then, yeah, like I finished my open water course. I didn't want to go back to Bangalore, and I totally wanted to like I didn't. I'd taken leave from work, and I was like, let it be. Like, I want to stay and do advanced, but then of course reality checks, and I had to come back. Uh, but yeah, that was the feeling back then, and I did come back. We were leaving for the States for Pittsburgh in August, so and this was April when I did my open water in 2015. So we still had 3 months. I really tried to get my friend to plan another trip, but like she was too busy and maybe not as interested. So I started thinking about it by myself. The the dive season on the West Coast, it closes by May. So you have to look at the east side and the Bay of Bengal. So basically, India is peninsular. You have the Arabian Sea on the west, and you have the Bay of Bengal on the east. Bay of Bengal is known for like its strong winds, big waves, but beautiful blue waters and spottings of manta rays and so on. So reading all this online, I thought maybe before I go to the States, I'd do that, but there was no time. And then now in the States, as a back there it is kind of expensive, so as students you can't afford it. And then getting back to India, then paying back the loans and all of that. So it was not until 2018 that I was able to spend money to dive again. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. To be honest, I definitely don't think that's just a Southeast Asia or I think it's kind of a, I don't want to say problem, but I guess problem is probably the right word, where you are kind of pushed in most agencies, not pushed, but you're highly recommended to just take that advanced right out of open water, even though the skills might not be there. Um, and I remember there, like the thing, looking back on it now, I think it was a good thing because the thing that hindered me, kind of the same for you, was the financial side of it, right? So I didn't quite have the money to go right into the advanced open water. It was like, because, it's not a cheap sport to get into, You have to, especially, in the States, I know a lot out here, you're not necessarily required to buy all of your gear, but in the States, a lot of places, they at least require you to buy your own mask, fins, snorkel. Usually with the fins, you need the boots. And right there becomes pretty expensive on top of the cost for the open water class, which is a whole nother subject because, I know some people say it's too cheap. Some people say it's too expensive. I think it's too expensive, right? Because it is very expensive. But at the end of the day, the instructor has to make money. So that's a whole nother conversation. But it did slow me down. I wasn't able to progress as fast as I would like. So I think, at the time I was like, this sucks. I want to take the advanced. I want to go into, I want to take the other courses. But I definitely think that that's a industry-wide problem to where people are kind of pushed towards furthering their education, even though they might not quite be there.
Right. That's interesting what you said, that some people think it's cheap. Were they comparing with other adventure sports?
It's I guess it depends on your financial situation, but I think it's more from the instructor standpoint, what the instructor is making at the end of the day, right? Because it's kind of a weird industry, right? Because it's, there is a lot of costs to get into it, but at the end of the day, like, instructors aren't bringing home the big bucks, right? Like, we're really not.
Cost of operations, yeah.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I kind of hate to rope myself into that category too, because I haven't actively taught in a while, but there is that kind of like, instructors should be paid more, and I completely agree, but at the same time, I hate to see this sport become so, I don't want to say privileged, that's the wrong word, but to where people can't afford to do it, right? It's, the cost, when we go down the continuing education route, the cost to become an instructor is not a cheap thing. And then every year you have your dues. And, by the time you get to be an instructor, it's like to have all of your own equipment. It's not a cheap thing. So I guess it just depends on how you look at it, right? So, because I firmly believe that it's not a cheap sport. And I hate to say that because I believe it's a sport that, I don't want to say everybody, but everybody should try, right?
Sure. So yeah, on those lines, like, I feel like here in India, for example, there are many people, especially down south in the southern tip, there are states where people feel, especially poorer sections, they feel it's still more affordable than becoming a fancy engineer and getting an MBA and all those things. So maybe, yeah, that is one aspect for people.
Yeah, so it just, I guess it depends on where you are and what you're doing, but and think it's necessarily just this, but if you look at longevity in this industry, there's definitely not a lot of people that stick around and, very, I don't want to say rarely, but like, you know, say your typical, I'll use Southeast Asia, like, Thailand or something. People will go, they'll, the zero to hero, they'll get their open water through their instructor, and then they start teaching, and within a year or two
They get
they
burnt out.
probably
Yeah.
yeah, and they stop, and then they're on to the next hobby or whatever, and then the new wave comes in, and there's always the new wave coming in, right? There's always the new wave, and longevity in the sport sometimes is hard because people either get burnt out or they're not making enough money. They kind of burn through their savings, and then it just becomes this whole thing. And sorry to get away from the topic of
No.
you. I apologize, but yeah, it is a very interesting topic and conversation. But let me ask you. Let's get back to you because I want to
Sure.
hear your story. So it took you a while to get back into it. When you got back into scuba diving, can you talk about your progression from there?
Oh, that was funny. So I landed for my advanced open water course, impromptu, like just the day before I contacted the dive center that, hey, can I do it? And they said, yeah, you can. I'd gone on a trip with four of my colleagues actually. So they were chilling and I was doing this. We hadn't had rest all night because when we landed in Pondicherry, which is on the East Coast, the place that we'd booked in did not exist. So we'd used Airbnb and there was no place to stay. So we literally slept in the car and then like 3 hours of sleep. And then my friends were kind enough to drop me at the center. And next thing I find myself in a tub, like a small plastic tub, where I'm doing my refresher. And it seemed okay. Like the instructor seemed satisfied and then we went to water. But I think the lack of sleep, that day we had 3 dives to do. The lack of sleep and the fact that they just put 4 kilo weight belt on me and it didn't help. So yeah, I could successfully complete only 2 of the 3 dives planned for that day, and I was like, oh no, this doesn't look good. I don't know if I can do this. But once I was back on land, my friends welcomed me with hot chocolate and all the positive energy, that you need, and some liquid courage. I was totally against it, but they were like, come on, you need it. And that actually like helped me relax a bit, get rid of my headache, and helped me have a very nice night's sleep. And the next day was beautiful. So like in the advanced course, you have 5 dives, right? So of them, 2 mandatory dives are the deep and the navigation, which were done. And then you can choose electives. And I personally wanted to do the search and recovery elective because I thought, yeah, you'd learn something cool and new. But my instructor, based on my performance the previous day, he was like, no, you can't do it. But then the next day I was like, please just try me. He's like, okay, you do your peak performance points, he dive first, let me see how that goes. And he was very happy. So yeah, it progressed quite well after that. And it ended on a good note. He was surprised that I was actually a good student. Yeah, then I kept going back. Almost every month you would find me taking an overnight bus from Bangalore to Pondicherry over some long weekend and logging more dives, simply getting more practice, eventually doing the rescue, and just hoping when will be the right time to do my dive master.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. How long is the overnight bus?
It's a 7-hour journey. You get on the bus at 11, you fall asleep, you wake up in Pondicherry.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Those are always nice because
yeah,
you
very
can,
nice.
sleep and get a little bit of rest, and then basically, yeah, you wake up and you're in a new destination. Okay, cool, cool. I've been on one overnight bus. It was actually in Thailand, and I enjoyed it. It is nice. I especially when they have the comfortable bus with the really nice seats.
Okay.
It makes a world of difference for sure.
Was it a sleeper?
I can't remember. It was a while ago. I think it was a bus. Yeah, it had to have been a bus. My memory is getting worse and worse by the day. Um, but- okay, cool. So you went through the progression, at what point, because you were saying like, okay, when you were ready to do your dive master, at what point did you know you wanted to move into the professional side?
So interestingly, I knew that I want to be a dive pro one day when I was doing my open water course. And that's primarily
Oh,
because
okay.
of what we've discussed already, which is the finances of diving. And I was like, I want there to be a day where, if I'm good at this, I don't want to spend to do it. And I want to show other people the beautiful blue world underwater. So, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's go back to this, I guess. So, I know you kind of said you mentioned a little bit of the diving on the, I think you said the East Coast.
Mhm.
Can you kind of tell me about the diving in general around India?
Right. So just going back to how India looks, it's a peninsula, meaning three sides is water. And the three sides water, it's called the Indian Ocean, which extends down, quite down, almost until middle of Australia, you can say. The Indian, and below that is the Antarctic Ocean, right? So that's how it is. Now, in this Indian Ocean, you have different seas. And on the west side of India, the west coast of India, there is a bay formed, and that area is called the Arabian Sea because you go further west and you reach Gulf. On the east side, you have it's called the Bay of Bengal. So these are relatively sheltered areas of the Indian Ocean where you can dive reasonably. And now that you've able to picture this, think of India as there's this peninsula and there are islands. So just below India, you have the Park Strait, and that connects to Sri Lanka. And you'll be surprised to know that the Park Strait, like the ocean between India and Sri Lanka, does not go deeper than around 20 meters.
Oh,
That's max
really?
depth
Oh,
you'll
wow.
find there. Yeah. But this entire depth contour, if you look at one of those apps which give you contours, right? So you will notice how on the west side of India you have these atolls which are actually continuing from the Maldives northwards, right? And there's a section of atolls, and it's called the Lakshadweep Sea, and these atolls form the Lakshadweep Islands. Lakshadweep is a part of India, and the diving there is pretty much like the Maldives, you can imagine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just an extension of that. The only caveat being that it's hard to access. Even for us Indians, we need police permits, which can take time. And for a long time, there was like foreign nationals were not allowed there. So also, it's an area which is under exploration. There are not any recompression chambers there, actually, to be able to support deeper dives than 30. So that is there, that aspect. In fact, many Indians prefer just going to Maldives because that ends up cheaper for them. But it's coming up. It's getting more popular. Our prime minister has also been active at that, building that popularity of Lakshadweep as a tourist destination. Then on the east side, you have these beautiful islands called Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So you have Andaman on north, and it's like a ridge basically. And then at the midpoint, you have like a small break, and then below that, you have the Nicobar Islands. And in fact, the Nicobar Islands are still home to many native tribes. It's again a place where not everybody is allowed to go. You need special research permits to be allowed there, even as an Indian. The Andaman Islands, on the other hand, they have been touristic for a while, and they are beautiful. Like, despite the tourism footfall, they are still very pristine. So you have the Andaman Islands, and to the east of Andaman Islands, it's called the Andaman Sea, and you keep going eastwards and you reach Thailand. So basically, it's all
Okay.
part of the
Okay.
same water mass. Yeah. It is, yeah. So these are the island diving possible in India, and they are the best dive spots in India, you can say, if you are looking at factors such as visibility or biodiversity and the like. Mainland diving can also be amazing, but there are a few challenges there. For example, like the shoreline of mainland India, it very gradually it slopes down. So sometimes, like even at the best places, you have to take the boat out maybe for like an hour, and only then you reach like a 40-meter depth where you'll have a small rocky ridge. But up until that point, it's all sandy, sandy. Around the mainland, yes, it's more accessible for all of us. So that's how I started diving, for example. But dive centers typically sink artificial reefs. In Pondicherry, you'll find each dive center has very methodically sunk their own artificial reef, and some have been around for a while and they're quite healthy if you take a look. There are also like there is fishing community there, and I would say not very in a not very environment friendly way. Some of them have sometimes sunk trawler boats. Okay, trawling is no longer like too prevalent here because we've sensitized the fishing community that it's not good. But yeah, you have certain wrecks because of that. And then, of course, you have war wrecks in certain parts of India, but they are not yet opened up essentially for public diving. They are still under exploration or still permits are needed. One of them, for example, in Kerala, and one more off Chennai on the east coast. Both of these were explored last year by my old time tech instructor. That is diving for you in India, ocean wise, and there is also a lot of freshwater diving. Now, what happens in the ocean, like I was mentioning, the west coast is highly seasonal. Like it opens up in October, it closes by May. So the rest of the year, those folks have to either look for something else or go elsewhere to dive. On the East Coast, however, it's perennial, right? It's throughout the year, but it's slightly unpredictable because you have a lot of cyclones happening in the Bay of Bengal. So on a really windy day, you cannot take the boat out. Pondicherry that way is nice because they have a harbor from which you can still you're not launching the boat from a shore, so it's still relatively you can do diving more often, even in rough waters. That is one thing. But yeah, there are days when we have to tell folks that, hey, sorry, no diving today, no boat out, there's a thunderstorm. And on those days, we take them to the freshwater quarries. Yeah, there are freshwater quarries almost everywhere, majorly granite in south of India. Those end up being really good training grounds because it's calm water. You can finish a lot of the confined training there. You can also make them repeat several times until they are so comfortable that when they go to the ocean, they don't have to think twice. Because
Yeah.
building the same skills in the ocean becomes sometimes a challenge with the environmental conditions.
So just a random question. You mentioned Sri Lanka, and I have very little knowledge about it, and I know that some people have been. Have you been diving there?
I've never dived in Sri Lanka, but it is on my bucket list, especially the
Okay.
HMS Hermes, if you've heard of it.
Yeah, I think so.
With Kalua.
Because well, I just know that. Well, I think it's like back and forth, and my knowledge might be a little bit dated at this point because I know it was kind of newer on the scene for tourism maybe in the last like 10, 15 years, and people started going there, more people started going there, and then I heard it kind of stopped for a little bit. That might have been, well, I mean, I know everything stopped around COVID, but I don't remember why I think this, but like it kind of became not so good to go there, and then now it's kind of opened up again to tourism. But I might be completely wrong on this. So I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not very sure about this, especially the tourism halt that you spoke of in Sri Lanka. I'm not
Okay.
very aware, but I do know my very second batch of open water students, they had done their Discover Scuba dives in Sri Lanka and they had loved it. So, yeah, it is
Okay.
quite good diving over there.
Awesome.
And again,
Awesome.
it varies seasonally whether you're diving on the east or western coast. But the like thing about Sri Lanka is it's a smaller island, so you can traverse easily from one side to the other.
Yeah, I've seen some like posts where people are calling Sri Lanka like the new Bali because Bali's getting super crowded. So people are like, don't go to Bali, go to Sri Lanka. So speaking of Bali, for all the listeners out there, this is actually where we met when you were doing some training out there. So you obviously went, I don't want to say past the dive master and instructor route, but you started venturing into the technical side of scuba diving, and currently you're a technical instructor, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about your path into the technical world of scuba diving.
So back in 2019, like I was basically in this limbo where I had a full-time job, which was allowing me to dive, but at the same time, I wanted to pursue dive master. I would not like coming back to Bangalore. I would really wish my job would allow me to work remotely. But yeah, all of that was not happening, and I did my side mount training one of the weekends, and I really loved it. I also learned research diving, like scientific diving, and where my instructor, she was like the best instructor I've had till date, I would say, because she was quite foundational. Because the things you learn to be a research diver, they help you your whole journey. Yeah, your basic control over trim, buoyancy, and all of that. So these two things paved way for me getting interested in tech. And this instructor I'm talking about, her name is Kira. She is not an active instructor anymore. She's got another business for herself. But like the center where she was teaching, that's where I also met my tech instructor to be, Yona, who pioneered technical diving and side mount diving in India actually. So I was like, yeah, someday I want to learn from Yona. Then in 2020, COVID happened. It was not the best thing I know for a lot of families and humans. But on the brighter side, it allowed remote work to be possible. So I was kind of, I tried to capitalize on that. In fact, I planned things in such a way. I was foreseeing there would be a lockdown, and I was like, I do not want to be locked down in Bangalore. I want to be in Pondicherry beginning my dive master. And so my dive master began, and COVID also began, which meant that boats stopped going out. We just had the quarry, and after a point, even the quarry stopped. So we were mainly focusing on building our confined skills as like to be dive professionals. On the side, Yona, however, he lives closer to quarries. So like for him, it was kind of accessible. So all I needed was to get myself to Yona, and then we could get to the quarry and we could dive. So that was the idea. It was wonderful because like I began with the back then I did it the paddy route. I began with my Tech 40 rating, and then Yona he's a raid instructor as well, so he kind of showed me how back then raid had certain the raid deco 50 course had a lot of like superior things to it. For example, you could start already breathing trimix just to go to 50 meters and have like a maximum air depth, like effective air depth, equivalent air depth of 30 meters. So I did my 50 level with him over the next few months, the raid way, and it was nice. I like loved it. Found myself at 50 meters. By then, the lockdown had eased and the ocean was accessible again. So we were at a 50-meter site that Yona and two other technical divers back in Pondi had discovered. They call it the Three Roses because they call themselves roses for some reason, maybe. But yeah. So yeah, Three Roses is like I was telling you, there's a drop off when you go an hour out away from shore. That drop off begins at 40, then there's another sandy patch, and then you again, if you keep going towards southeast, you will find another small drop off that is at 50 to 60 meters. You have Three Roses there, and you have many other such patches. What I remember about this trimix dive was that suddenly everything was not blue anymore because maybe my eye was doing the white balancing better on the helium. It was, yeah, you are suddenly much more conscious. So that got me into technical diving, and then eventually I became an instructor in a few more months. By 2022, I was an instructor. And actually, I wanted to become a technical diving instructor, but you do have to become a recreational instructor before you do that. Because these are the things I like teaching. The technical, not that I do dislike teaching recreational diving. That's also got its own charm. But this was the motivation.
What are things that draw you to teaching technical diving?
First and foremost, the fact that once you are a technical diver, you end up becoming a much more controlled and better diver. You have much better self-awareness, situational awareness, and team awareness when you're underwater. Basically, you are making people do the best diving that they can do if you're teaching them technical diving. Another thing is that it's safe. Don't get me wrong, like, yes, we say technical diving is risky. The very first thing we learn is that, hey, you're doing this at your own risk, much higher chance of dying, blah, blah. But in recreational diving, you'll notice that people anyway end up pushing their limits. Now, if you really want to do that, why not do it safely? Do it in a planned and informed way so that you don't become a statistic. So that's another angle. Then another thing is that I'm from an engineering background, so the more the equipment, like the more things to think about. And another thing is that I was a scientific diver by then, and there are some, let's say you want to survey a site which is at 30-meter depth on a no decompression dive. You don't really have that much time to do your survey properly, but you don't have to really go deep to do tech. You can do a shallow tech dive as well. You just get more time at the bottom. And that very, I had an intent always to do work underwater, do something useful underwater. So yeah, this helps.
Okay. No, I actually completely agree with you because there is a higher level of risk, but like you just said, if you are properly trained, then essentially you're safer because most of those skills, I feel like kind of once you transcend into the technical realm or whatever you want to call it, it's very hard to turn that off. So even when you go back to recreational single tank diving, all those skills are still there. All those thoughts are still there. The way that you're diving is still there. So you essentially in turn become a safer diver because it's not like you're ever turning it off. It's like, no, okay, you realize that the risks are higher, but if you think about it, most of those risks are still there even when you're recreationally diving. It's just, I don't want to say because obviously anytime you get into diving, it's like, hey, this is a risky sport. We're in a foreign environment to human beings, so there's a lot of things that could go wrong, but we're going to try to do everything we can to make it as safe as possible. So no, I like to hear that. And the quarries, so there's quite a bit of quarries to go dive in throughout India.
Yeah, throughout, I like the ones that I know of that are popular to dive in are the ones in Pondicherry, and then you have in Goa, and also in Kerala, and Chennai
Okay.
as well. Yeah. So basically, along the coast, quarries are more often dived in. For some reason, so like Bangalore is on a plateau. We are at almost 900-meter altitude here, right? So the quarries here, there are many, but for whatever reasons, they are very silty.
Oh,
Whereas the
okay.
quarries along the shores, you will notice that they have a kind of murky layer in the shallows and then it clears up below 12 meters. There was a point when the Pondicherry quarry, you could shine a beam of torch from one end at the bottom and you could see it bounce back the other wall. So
Oh,
it can
wow.
be that clear.
I know. So I've had a few different conversations with, I guess, different people. So there is a growing scene of cave exploration in India. Is that a correct assessment?
There is. And it's been evolving for the last 2, 3 years now.
Okay. So are there quite a few sites that are popping up? Is there a lot of exploration groups going out?
So there is a lot of limestone in India, right? A lot of limestone rocks. A lot of those places have caves, dry caves at least, that are known of. And definitely there are submerged caves that are theorized and known in many parts. The ones that are actively being explored for the last 2, 3 years are the ones in northeast of India. So you have this small state called Meghalaya, and which is actually the rainiest state in India. So, like really high annual rainfall, and therefore you have like three cave systems which are known over there. There are like hills over there called the Jaintia Hills, and you have an entry level cave called Krem Chimpe. This has very less flow and it's relatively good for introductory cave divers or people wanting to pursue cavern dives. Then you have Krem Kardam. This is like a fully submerged cave. It's phreatic, so it's always been underwater, unlike the other two. This one, it connects two siphons and then it flows down. Not too much is explored here. It's just I think the distance between two siphons has been explored. There is a bit higher flow here for, like, not ideal for initial divers. Then there is an unexplored, very little explored new site which they've been eyeing, and where hopefully I get to go in November later this year, which is the Creme Bristinot. This is basically a shaft. So you have like the river flowing, and then you have suddenly a shaft. And it's a very narrow shaft apparently. So the deepest they've been able to go is 30 meters, and then they felt it was not too safe, so they came up. They felt that they were not very well equipped on that particular dive, so they came up. All of these that I mentioned, they are river caves.
So your journey into the overhead, what drew you to that side of diving?
Actually, it's the exploration that was beginning in India back in 2021 when I got to know about it, and I was already a side mount diver and soon going to be a side mount instructor. So it intrigued me for that reason. The dive center where I was dive master back then, the owner, and he was also my partner back then, he was very passionate about caves. And somehow that passion rubbed off on many of us, including me. So that was the beginning. But then, like, somehow I didn't get time for it until 2023. By 2023 July, I was no longer with the center, and it had not ended well between any of us. But later in December, I was like, let's go to Klaus, let's learn. Back then, actually, my target was to do my advanced trimix and just get that rating in so that I can come back and help with exploration of deeper sites in the ocean itself in India. But then the way the dive sites are in Thailand, where they teach the advanced trimix, it's a sinkhole. You will not get that depth in the ocean. So it's a sinkhole, and essentially to be able to get to that point in the sinkhole, you'd have to follow guidelines which would end up being inside cavern zones. So my instructor was anyway gonna train me as a cavern diver. So then I was like, I might as well, try and along with my advanced trimix finish the full cave. So I wasn't able to do it all back then because we just had 11 days, and it's a lot. We were like, both Klaus and I, we felt we had been too ambitious when we made that plan. Yeah. But then I went back so I just finished 2 levels of cave back then. I went back this May finally, and I finished the 3rd level. And I'm glad that it happened at this pace, because during this period I have been doing many more tech dives. I've been teaching more students and all of that. So yeah, my comfort level is and awareness level is much higher in the water.
So how did you like that training? How was it? Did you find it difficult? I have not been to the caves up there, and I hate to say I'm newly certified, but I got certified last year, cave diving, overhead environment. I haven't done as many dives as I would like. I'm hoping to change that either later this year or next year. But how did you like the training? Because obviously I feel like, as you progress through the levels, the training essentially gets more difficult, right? Hopefully it's not so difficult it's out of your reach, because hopefully you're kind of prepping yourself to go into these higher levels. But there is a higher level of training. How did you find, especially going into the overhead, that adds a whole nother aspect to your training? How did you find the process?
I think the process was really good. And like I said, it really helped that I had the gap from December 2023 until May 2025 before I went in again. And because one thing about caves is that they are an unforgiving environment. You don't even have a soft ceiling that you can go up and get DCS and still maybe be alive. It's much more strict. Your gas planning needs to be on point, your timing needs to be on point. So all of that requires significant amount of mental control, awareness. Basically, if you have stress in your life on land, you've got to master the art of leaving it right above water when you do your cave dive. That was something that, like, back in 2023, for whatever reasons, I was maybe not in the best mental state for it as well, right? So whereas this time there was a big difference in the way I could not get stressed underwater, for example. Yeah, if you look at skills, I feel like it is a great progression. You get to repeat skills enough number of times so that by the end, when your instructor is happy to certify you, you also feel confident that yes, you will be a reliable teammate as a cave diver.
So, a question I would like to ask is obviously scuba diving, technical diving is a pretty male dominated industry. What are your thoughts on that? Like, obviously, I think we would all like to see more women in technical diving or even in diving in general. What are your thoughts on it?
I would encourage more and more women to participate because they will find it interesting and they shouldn't get deterred by the fact that it is fairly male dominated. Yes, they will face challenges because it's so male dominated. You do not find ergonomically fitting tech gear often for women. But then again, these are things which will get fixed only if there is an influx of women doing these things, right? So better things can be designed for them. Another thing is that they must remember that in fact, like even the recreational courses, not just the tech courses, say, and even in tech courses, it's even more important, right? That anyone can call off any dive at any point for whatsoever reason without fear of reproach. And that's something they should keep in mind because if they are in an environment where they don't feel emotionally safe to be able to call off a dive, they should not be diving there. And maybe they should be reporting that environment as well because it's a safety concern. Nobody should ever feel pressurized to dive for ego or whatever reasons or to prove themselves because health comes first, safety comes first. And if that's not followed, that's when you result with episodes like you had in Malta, an accident, right? Christine Gotchi, she was 35, and even though she hadn't had sleep, it was her very first open water dry suit dive, and she still did a tech dive. So basically, she was pushing. You should always do your pinnacle dive in steps. You should not push multiple limits and try to do that kind of a dive. That's something that we as women especially should take care of because we still have to make our name. We still have to prove ourselves in a way that we can also do this equally capably. But that doesn't mean that we throw safety out the window.
So, as far as like, because I mean, I'll admit, even me, I have sometimes trouble speaking up, and I would think that might be a little bit more. I mean, I don't want to say might. I would think that could be more difficult to be a woman in that situation. If there's a lot of men around and bravado and this and that. What advice would you have for that person to speak up? Would there be any advice that you could give, or basically just say, hey, take a step back? Is there anything more that they can do to kind of give them more confidence to be able to speak up or step out?
Right. The first thing the lady diver can try is she can try to remind her teammates about like the human factors of diving and how it's important to be considerate. And it's possible that in that particular team dynamic, they haven't been exposed to that side of things. So, in fact, Gareth Locke is that's Human Factors of Diving by Gareth Locke is something that Mark teaches a lot, right? And it's actually very nice. Many dive teams across the world go through that, and so that lady can actually take the initiative of introducing that entire concept to that group of divers. That's the second step she can take. And if they are still, reluctant, or if they still have a lot of macho bravado and all those things, then I think it would be sensible for her to take a step back and look for a different team to dive with. Yeah.
Do you think that it's getting better? Do you think it's getting not better? That's not the right word, but do you think that the numbers are starting to change? Like, are you seeing more women approaching technical diving from where you are?
It's definitely getting better. Like, I have a lot of my female students who want to do this, non technical students who want to do this in India. And then you have amazing ladies like you have Naomi. So she's an inspiration. She's in Thailand and she's doing pioneering work there as a woman. So there are such examples which are coming up, and role model women that we can all look up to. Make sure that we, try and interact with them, because generally these women are really friendly and they are ever ready to support fellow female divers to grow.
Awesome. And actually, so I do like to see that. And where I did my cave training is well, I mean, obviously there's Natalie, who's the owner, but then also Vince. But it is mostly a woman ran shop. I think the numbers there. I think there's 2 guys that work there and maybe like 6 women. So it's nice to see that there's shops out there that exist like that. Yeah, and Naomi is awesome. I met her at ADEX this past year, which was in April. Yeah, it was in April. Kind of backtracking now, because so when we met in 2024, you were in Bali for some training. How was that whole process? You were taking a course. I came to hang out and do some dives. How was that whole process? How did you because you were doing a crossover?
I was doing a crossover from
Yeah.
PADI to SSI. Yeah, so back in 2023, when I had a falling out with the dive center that I used to work at, they were PADI and I was a tech instructor. And the only place where I could maybe teach tech courses would be them, and like neither they nor I were too keen on that. So it made sense to start crossing over. So I first crossed over to TDI back in 2023 itself. That was a good decision. And then I have a friend here in Bangalore. They have this dive school called Bangalore Scuba. So their model is they basically like train people in the pools here on weekends, and then the next weekend they take them somewhere to open water, like the ocean. These are people that I got in touch with after I had my falling out in 2023. And I started back from scratch. I would do very simple things such as just go to the pool and assist with confined training of recreational courses. And then slowly, once I felt confident again, my friend itself who runs that place, he suggested, why don't you cross over to SSI? And I did that. But SSI does not let you get the XR crossover ratings just like that. They require you to go through a seminar. And I was so glad that that happened, because I learned a lot from Mark when that happened. The ways of teaching, the nuances, team diving, human factors of diving, all of these things, you do talk about them, you do read about them, but you don't practice them often. And Mark makes sure that you do that. So that was very good.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy. I feel like, and that's why I like Tek Deep as a kind of home base anytime I'm in Amed or Bali or whatnot, because even just hanging around the shop, just hanging around Mark, you're going to learn a ton of stuff. It's completely, he's a very knowledgeable, very funny individual. As we were chatting to schedule something, you just went on a trip recently, didn't you?
I've been just traveling this year, it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like in February, I went back to Ahmed because in April I had to basically pioneer technical diving in the Andamans I just spoke about, right? So I had to teach few people to become technical divers, and I felt like it's been a while that I ran tech courses, so I needed some practice. So I went to Ahmed in Feb for that. For a month, I was assisting Nick and Mark. Then I did Andamans, where like my first batch was like 4 students. We did it slowly and steadily. Then I went, of course, for my cave training to Thailand. And after that was done, I still tried to hang around a bit and assist Klaus and just see how he teaches, for example. Basically, all these are great divers and dive instructors and actually instructor trainers, and we should probably all be open to seeing how each one does what they do and why they do it, then impart what we feel is necessary to our students with that thought process. And then I got back, and then I had to go for batch 2 of the Andamans boys. So we have another successful batch there. Yeah, so that's been it. Like this year has been very focused on technical diving education for me.
Cool. So what's in store for the rest of the year?
The rest of the year, so right now, almost so much time has gone by, and it's half the year's over, and I've just been diving. So I feel like maybe it's time to take a small step back and focus on the job that pays. So that's gonna be a kind of priority for a few months, unfortunately. It has to be. But aside from that, I am in talks of helping with the cave exploration in November. Also going with these boys that I just certified in the Andamans to Amed.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, maybe in September. Let's see how things pan out. So these are the two things. Of course, I would love to get into CCR and stuff like that, but maybe now is not. I don't have the time right now.
What which unit would you have you been like looking at? I mean, we all start looking very early on, but do you have an idea of what unit you would go towards?
So I really liked the Kiss Sidewinder, and when I spoke to more people about it, so in fact, yeah, at Tech Deep, they pointed me to your unit actually.
It's becoming quite popular. It's a good unit, and I really do enjoy it. And the Kiss unit too is a good unit. They're both really good units. It's just, I guess it, like with any, whatever your choice is, it's all about just figuring out what works best for you, right? But yeah, no, I'm very happy with the unit that I chose, and I know a lot of sidewinder divers that are very, very happy. Obviously, it's a very popular, well used unit around the world. So you would go the side mount route, right? Not the back mount?
Not the back mount for sure, because I am quite like into overhead diving by now. I really like it. Yeah, not back mount, chest mount. There are options. Like the Triton is what my instructor Klaus uses. That's good as well because he can do it on side mount. And then there's the Choptima, but like there are also cost factors associated with everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and also
Always comes
like
down to
yeah,
finances.
also like do you have the required trainers in and around Southeast Asia? No, for like the Fathom Gemini we don't, right? It's all concentrated in North America right now.
So there are instructors that are around. So there's a guy in Dubai
Okay.
who teaches on the unit. I actually know someone that went out there to do their mod 1, and then there is a guy in, I think there's a recently newly certified, or I don't want to say certified, but I want to say this guy in China now. And then my instructor, who actually I did my training with, he is going to the Philippines, I think, in August to do some training. I'm assuming there's some people that have some units out, or maybe they bought units out there and they wanted to do some training. So it's growing. The list is growing for sure. But yeah, the closest one to you is probably going to be
Dubai.
Dubai, I would think so, which probably isn't that far, I would assume, right? It's probably fairly close.
Yeah. It would be an expensive place to be though, right? So that's something.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I
I've
don't
never
know.
been. Oh,
I'll check
I
that
would
out
assume. Yeah, I would assume it would be an expensive place. But yeah, I mean, with everything, the finances are always just the determining factor. But no, well, it was great to catch up, and I have one last question for you before I let you go. And well, first, I want to thank you for joining the podcast. It's one, great to see you again, and two, just kind of great to catch up. But three, also really good to hear your story. I guess my last question for you, and I always like to end on some sort of advice question. Somebody that wants to kind of move into higher risk diving, whether it be technical or, I don't want to say scientific is higher risk, but higher skill level diving, to where you need to have the certain skills on point before you should move forward. What is the best piece of advice you could give to somebody that wants to kind of move into higher level of diving?
One would be to, that's something that we keep saying, that start planning your dives and then diving the plan and make that habit. But then I like to add another, I was thinking about this and I would like to add another clause to it, which is that know why you've made your plan. Don't just buy the plan because somebody else more experienced than you did it. Understand why they did it, and if you differ in your opinion, try to discuss it with them. Dive a plan that you understand.
Okay, no, that's actually really good, and I like the way that you put that, because it is. I mean, I know that's the saying, plan your dive, dive your plan, but know your plan definitely
Understand
needs
your
to be
plan.
added in there. No, that's really good. That's really good. Awesome. Well, once again, I really, really want to thank you for joining the podcast. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much for taking the time. I look forward. I don't know when we'll get back in the water together, but I look forward to the next time. Maybe I can make it out to Amed when you take
September.
your next trip out there. So
That'd be
I'll
wonderful.
try to plan it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nick, for taking the time out, and hope you have a great evening.
Off Gassing, a scuba podcast.